Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you?
How are you today?
Good. Were you able to view those survey results I sent you?
Yeah, I forgot to send you a note. I think Nancy sent the survey either sent the same day or the next morning. And um, so,
Did you see though, I sent you a link that had like some that you could view the results on?
oh, you did? Was that today?
No, it was, I think over the weekend maybe.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I mean, I think I sent it to you. Let me know
Well,
if I'm lying. Maybe I just thought about it.
well, let's see. Oh, you know what? Here's a link to the current survey data. Data somehow flew by me in cyberspace.
Oh,
Gotcha. Okay.
you should be able to pull it up and see. I don't know if it'll show you just what it was at that day or what it's at now. Right now we have 85 responses.
85?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
So if
That's,
you click that link, shoot me an email later and let me know if
okay.
it shows you the most up to date. And if not, I'll send you a fresh one.
That's wonderful. I will do that. And the message is when you get a short message from Michelle, read it all, right? Thanks again.
Yep, no problem.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Al, what time do I need to meet you at the bakery to go run some punchkis for you tonight?
Well, I'm leaving right after the meeting, so
Yeah,
you can
I'll
tag
meet you
along
there
if
then.
want.
I'll meet you over there. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
I'll take the Wood County, Lucas County loop.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you got to plow after that.
Yeah, yeah.
Fun stuff.
You got an all-nighter.
Yeah.
And did you go all night last night?
Till about 4. And then I had to get back up. So then I salted. Because then I didn't have to scrape or plow. I just salted a lot, and that was good enough tonight or last night, but it's not gonna be good enough tonight. So
Sure.
yeah. But they're slammed right now. I just checked the cameras, man. They're getting pounded right now at work. So
People buying punchkis or donuts or pizza?
no, pizza shop's closed today, tomorrow. So yep. Punchkis.
Good.
Yeah, man.
Make hay, baby.
I've
No
never had
calories in
snow this
punchki,
much
right?
though on Fat Tuesday, so we'll see how it impacts it. But I mean, obviously it's gonna slow it down a little bit, but we'll see. So
I don't know. People love their punchkis.
they do. Yes, yes.
Oh, my watch is trying to tell me I need to work out before I eat those punchkis.
No, they're fat free this year, Cal.
Oh, right on. Thank you. Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
man,
it.
come on. Yep. I seen that holy moly donut shop. They're just not even. They're just closing down tomorrow. They're not even making them tonight. I'm like,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
Where's that?
Holy Toledo donut shop. That
Oh.
they do the gourmet ones, like the real fancy ones, you know.
Yeah.
Charge like $2.50 a donut, which must be nice, but yeah.
When you're doing designer donuts, you can charge stuff like that, man.
Yeah.
Okay, but Alan knows his regulars would freak out if he
Oh,
did that
God.
donut.
They no doubt.
They're gonna put bacon on yours? I had one of those that had bacon on it. It was awesome. Maple
We
with
bet,
bacon.
we tried that, but people that going to the bakery for 30, 35 years, like Mayor's father-in-law, like they're just
Hey,
not.
hey, don't bring him in this. I don't want to get
They know what they want, and any kind of change I do, they freak out. Everything, no matter what it is. I could change the kind of straws I put in their cups, and they freak out.
Mm-hmm. True
So
story.
are they your board of directors?
They are, yes,
They think they are, Brad. That's what they think.
Yeah.
yes. They're my city commission. I'm Greg, so it's one of those things where, even though it's like, yeah, it's. Watson, you've heard him talk, man. Larry used to get at me at pre-meetings, just out of just random stuff. I'm like, really, Larry? Come on.
Well, you know what you need to do, Al.
Yeah.
Well, it's it just hit 5:30. So Greg, if you would like to give the Zoom speech, that would be great. Thank you.
Happy to. Good evening, everyone. I'm City Administrator Greg Elliott. I'd like to address a few things before the mayor requests a roll call. This is the pre-meeting, which is a forum for the City Commission to discuss various issues and topics. For much of the meeting, we ask the participants mute themselves to allow the commissioners to have their discussion and to minimize any background noise that may be disruptive. An opportunity for public comment will be provided at the end of the meeting, and participants will be invited at that time to unmute and address the commission if they wish. Talked in the past about Zoom bombing. This is where a virtual meeting is interrupted by people who fill the screen with objectionable content. This occurs during our meeting tonight. We will disconnect the meeting and restart after a few minutes. Attendees can reconnect via the same link. We'll turn over the video of the meeting to law enforcement for investigation as well. We hope to conduct our meeting free of this sort of interruption. Thank you all for participating, and Mayor, I'll turn the meeting over to you for the roll call.
Robin, roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Halt,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Gauss,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
all commission members present.
Thank you. And Greg, I will hand it back over to you to begin the pre-meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So the first item on the pre-meeting agenda tonight is a discussion of a blight manual that the city attorney has prepared, in which a draft of which was in your packets for the meeting. This came out of some meetings we had with a number of community leaders, a number of the members of the commission, and the mayor were participants in that as well, so I won't go too deep into it, but we had occasion to hear from some other communities who worked successfully on addressing blight in their communities and learn from their experiences. And we're trying to up our own game in terms of the procedures and practices that we put in place. And the manual, I'll let the city attorney speak for herself, but is intended to be a helpful guide to the community as to how we're going to begin that process. And with that, I turn it over to Tamaris.
Thank you, Greg. So like Greg said, we were meeting with groups from a group from the community. We had opportunity to learn from a lot of other communities that have had some success with battling blight. And so one of the things that we really came to a conclusion on is that our biggest asset in battling blight is education and educating the community about what blight is, how municipalities deal with it, and what the community can do to help us deal with it. And so we have been working on two things. One, this blight manual, and two, a new blight ordinance to be put into the manual. And by putting it together in this manner, the idea is that it takes any person kind of from beginning to end of everything you need to know about how to deal with blight, whether you're the person who's being served with a civil infraction, or whether you're the person who is the landlord and your tenants keep causing you to get civil infractions, or you're the landlord and you want to make sure that your properties are staying up to code, or whether you're the citizen that wants to report blight and you need to know, who do I go to and what should I expect the city to do once the blight is reported. So our goal is to cover all of those things and make the community more educated about exactly what it is that we as municipality deem to be blight and what type of things we're targeting. So I'll just run through an overview of it really quickly and then just kind of probably open it up to questions from the commission on the different areas or where you would like to see changes made in this. This is definitely just in draft form, and it was our intent to bring it to you and say, do you think that we need to keep this part? Should we remove this part? And really get an idea of what needs to be included and what does not, or maybe we're missing something with all the information we think we have in there. So as you can see, we tried to make it something that we could get the community to buy into. And so we chose this title of the Maple City Modernization Program, Making Strides for Maple Pride, so that we're encouraging Maple Pride once again and getting people to be proud of living in Adrian and being willing to put the work in to fight the issues that we have with blight. Then first we went into talking about the difference between a blight civil infraction and a misdemeanor. It's important for people to understand that. They need to know that initially they're dealing with civil infractions, and that if things continue to happen or are repetitive, then it could go to a misdemeanor. I think it's important for the community to understand that we're not just running out issuing misdemeanors right off the top as well, because you may have gotten feedback before where people think, oh, you're making old people criminalized because they can't paint their house. And so now you're making them into criminals because you're issuing misdemeanors, but that's not usually the case. And so we want people to understand what's the process. We start with civil infractions and then move our way up to the misdemeanors. Then we go into the detailed life of a blight ticket, which is about, the lifespan is about as long as ours. If you really look at it, it's not just that simple that they get a ticket, boom, now they go to court and it's over. You can see that it tells residents what's going to happen. You make the complaint or someone makes a complaint. Now there's an investigation by our city inspector. If they find that there's a violation, then a notice of violation is issued. Notice of violation in general gives them 10 days to correct. That's the usual time that Glenn and Jake will give, unless it's something that's like imminent danger or something like that. And then there's a much more immediate time frame involved. If they don't correct before the time is up on the notice of violation, that's when we get to the point of a ticket being issued, and that's a civil infraction. The ticket once the ticket's issued and gets filed with the court, then it can be set for hearing. And that's the point where I step in and go into court on behalf of the city. The ticket could get paid. And then at that point, if it's paid and if the person is in compliance and the inspectors report back to me that they're in compliance, then that's the end of it. But they can't just pay the ticket and say, well, I'm still not going to fix the stuff. So even if they pay the ticket and things are not fixed, they still have to appear in court. And if they don't appear in court, we would ask for an order to show cause from the judge, and she would require them to appear. And actually at that point, if there's a show cause, a bench warrant can be put out for someone for failure to appear. When a hearing is held, before that hearing is actually, well, not before the hearing, but at the hearing, the judge will put me into a room with that individual to talk to them about whether or not they intend to cure the blight, how much time they think they need to cure the blight, and is that something that we can work with? And if it is, then we generally try to get a resolution that we can both agree upon and get that entered on the record when we go back in, so that now there's an order on the record with the court saying this is what they intend to do. And if they don't follow through on that, then we have the ability to go back to the court and say they're in contempt of your order. If it's already been taken care of, but they still had to appear in court because they waited until after the ticket was issued. If Glenn or Jake verifies that it was taken care of, then we will dismiss the ticket, but we still require that they pay the fines and costs so that the city's expenses are covered in us having to go to court. That's pretty much the life of the ticket. And then as you see, we go into definitions on blight, just kind of covering everything that every different area that you could think of, we hope, that might be considered blight. And obviously some municipalities are going to have more blight in certain areas and less in others, but we wanted to go through and explain all that because it's the process is different if it's an owner occupied residence versus a rental property and a business property. So there's different areas that blight occurs in, or different types of blight. So we wanted to make sure we were giving some type of definition for that, helping people to understand the different types of compliance violations, like emergency orders or rental and commercial, zoning violations, and rubbish and junk accumulation. Those are our 4 major areas that we deal with blight in. Then we also wanted to make sure that we're educating people about the different ways that we can enforce and some of the obstacles that we face in doing that. And one of the big obstacles that we face is who owns the property, sometimes tracking down that property owner, which is something that we plan to address in the new blight ordinance by requiring that they have an individual within so many miles of the city of Adrian that is put down as a contact person. And we have property owners that live in Florida or live in other areas, and they're just simply not here. So we want to create a requirement where they have to have an agent on their behalf that can get here quickly and deal with issues on their properties. We also discuss tax forfeitures and foreclosures and bankruptcy and how those things affect blight enforcement with regard to a property. Then you'll see that there's a place at the bottom of page 6 where our new blight ordinance will be inserted. And the citizens that we've been working with have had a lot of input into that. And so right now we're just working on condensing it down to the format that we usually use for ordinances, but we really wanted to get feedback from all of you tonight before making those kind of final cuts in the ordinance so that we know what direction the commission is looking to go. You'll also see that in this booklet, they will know where the hearing locations are and what they should expect about that, what they should expect when they come to court, how should they be prepared for that. If they're going to represent themselves, how can they, what type of evidence and things can they bring? And so just kind of giving them an idea of what to expect so that they don't feel unprepared. We also talk about having an inspector list docket, which basically means that there's a lot of court procedures that take place without the inspectors having to be present. And that we could use affidavits on their behalf as well to balance out their time, right? Because our inspectors, everyone wants us to enforce blight, but if they're spending all their time in court with it, how are they out doing inspections or following up? So we're working very hard to make sure that they don't have to be in court unless it's absolutely necessary. That's my job to be there and their job to be out doing the inspections. We also talk about what are some acceptable defenses if you find yourself in a blight situation that you think that you're not responsible for, then okay, what are some acceptable defenses? And then we go into what can the court do? When we go through the hearing, what are the different options that the court has and what kind of decisions can be made? And just briefly describing each one of those decisions. And then other actions that the court may take. Next, we wanted to include a section on payment for blight fines and fees and costs, and that's not 100%. I didn't want to put a phone number and stuff on there yet because we're not 100% sure on if they're going to continue to take those payments over the phone after COVID, or if that's just something that they're doing right now. So I didn't want to put that information out there and then someone Google it later and find a number and say that doesn't work for us. We also are hoping that they do keep taking them over the phone and so on, and we'll have all these different methods of payment. And we also discussed the effects of the timing of the payment. Then we wanted to make sure that we include what their appeal rights are and how those can be exercised so that they have that information at their fingertips. And let's see what else. We want to make sure that once we have this all hashed out, that they will know how to contact which city departments. And we also want to get clear direction as to which departments we want to include on this list. Of course, code enforcement and blight inspection are going to be there, but do we want the mayor's office to be listed here? Do we want Vince's department, the police department to be listed here? Just kind of getting some clear direction. And then we also have talked a lot about creating districts within the city and the possibility of using our precincts as an initial map to create those districts, but there's not been anything solid decided as to how those districts would be created. But creating about 6 districts that would allow the inspectors to have each month a district that they focus on. So if there's 6, then that means at least 2 months out of the year, your district should get some focus on them going out and issuing notices and citations in that particular district so that we're making sure that we're consistently covering the entire city and not just focusing in certain areas, but making our way around the city at least twice a year through the whole city. So that's the idea of the districts. And we just wanted to kind of give an example of what that may look like. What else? After that, there is a place where we plan to list all of your information so that all of your constituents will be able to talk to you even more about blight. And then you'll see that there's an index of exhibits, and we plan to put in forms and examples, our fee schedule, examples of what a ticket will look like, information sheets, and all those different types of things as attachments to the document. And that is pretty much it.
Tamaris,
Yes.
I know I was in these meetings with you, and I know that one thing that came up from several of these different cities and communities that we talked to was that this is something that, like, you buy a commercial property, you buy a rental property, you buy your own property, owner occupied. Like, this is something that you get, so you know what you need to abide by, or like what the process is. Is that what we're still looking at, or is this just something that would be online on the city website? Like what are we looking at when it comes to that? Because I know we had discussed that back and forth a few times, and that it's good sometimes. A lot of times people just don't know, and they don't know how to find that information, and they don't know what they can do in a situation of blight. I've heard that over and over again for many community members.
Yeah, so we've discussed a lot of different options on how we would get the information out. Of course, the most obvious is that it would be available on our website. I think that we've even talked about creating a blight page there. That's something that Michelle would be able to add. But the other thing that we've talked about is just really getting out and communicating within the community and using the resources that are in this group that we've started working with to connect us with community agencies. And other groups where we could get out and talk to them, put together a PowerPoint that kind of explains all this or some sort of presentation. And, you know, I think some of them have even said they'd be willing to do it in the same format that we do our Zoom meetings and kind of do a share screen. But getting to those community leaders and those that are active in the community to explain to them what the rollout is on that. Also making this available when people register their properties, because the landlords have to register all their rental properties. So having this available on the 3rd floor at City Hall when they do their registration, they would get a copy of it. There are groups that are for landlords and groups that are for tenants. And we've talked about going to each of those types of groups to present so that they are aware kind of this rollout on this new program. We've also talked about possibly doing something with WLEN Viewpoint on a Saturday morning so that we could talk about this, getting something on WABJ, doing something with the newspaper as well, and talking to Spencer about it so that we can really publicize what it is that we're trying to do and get the information out there for individuals. And then there's all kinds of other places that we could make it available, whether that be at the Register of Deeds, in the county building, whether it be with the clerk's office, but realtors could have access to it as well. So we just really are looking at being able to communicate it to different groups in the community so that the word gets out.
And I think that's really an important piece. If it's especially, I think tenants a lot of times don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. And I know that came up a lot in all of our discussions that, well, sometimes they have fear of, you know, retaliation against them if they were to call it in. But I think a lot of times they just don't know what to do, or they don't even know what the blight, you know, they don't realize that what they're doing is going to possibly get a violation for blight. Sometimes tenants don't know because landlords are not giving that information to them. But sometimes it's a situation where something's just not getting fixed at their property and they don't know what to do. So that's great. Thank you very much. And I know that came up a lot in our meetings.
I just have a couple of pieces of feedback. This document, I think it's fantastic, and it's very detailed, and obviously there's been effort put in on it. It's extensive though. In how do we make this the easiest? Because the best adoption of this or best acceptance of it is to make sure people understand it. So we've got many people that learn differently. So what about one, you know, a bullet point executive summary, a flow chart, something else to introduce this, and then have this behind it of, hey, here's the real guts of it if you want to read the code. And you know, I know you guys have written this with the idea of user acceptance in adoption. There's still quite a bit of legal terminology in here, and it's obvious that you guys have tried to write it without some, but even some people aren't familiar with the court process. So, you know, do they understand what a motion to set aside default means, or, you know, those kind of things that could really turn somebody off and make this less user friendly than it really is. And you know, I think that and you guys start off this document this way, but I think it's maybe even on the cover page of reaching out to what's blight versus we need somebody just to get the car off their front yard, and how do we approach that?
Okay. Thank you for all that feedback. So it sounds like we need more It needs to be more like those yellow books, like Blight for Dummies. That's my, like we need to
Like
make
a
it simpler.
Can we put it in like a pamphlet form, like a pamphlet that goes out to renters and new homeowners, et cetera, or whatever, that explains very briefly what you're looking for, but then on that pamphlet is the direction to your,
Right, a pamphlet or a
To
one
the link,
pager.
Kelly, like,
yeah.
okay,
I just, most, you consider when you bought your first home or when you bought a home, you're not really looking for that, but it's something you throw in a drawer or whatever. You're probably not going to put a document like this in a drawer, but you might throw that pamphlet in. I don't know.
okay. Yeah, definitely.
Excuse me, Tamaris. Those first two
Yes.
comments are really good, but let me jump back just a bit. I know that we had talked about this in meetings prior, but I don't remember seeing anything in there about repeat offenders. I believe that most people are going to embrace what we've done, but I don't remember, as I read through the document, I don't remember seeing anything in there for repeat offenders. Did I miss it, or?
You didn't miss it, Commissioner Strayer, but it's definitely in the ordinance that we're working on and definitely clearly defined in the ordinance. So it will be there, but no, I didn't talk about it in this document.
Okay, thank you.
Just one other piece as I scrolled through here real quick. There's a lot of phone numbers in here.
Yes.
My opinion, put one or two in, and then that person can route to the right place. If having the building inspector, the code enforcement in here, what's the difference? Do most people know what the difference is, or how they even play into something of this nature? So whether we're sending them up to the inspections department and they can be the traffic cop, or we're sending them through the clerk, or I don't know who the right person is, but there's a lot of phone numbers in here, and people are going to thumb through it and pick one and dial.
I absolutely agree. That's why I didn't include all those numbers in the draft version of it. And all the ones that do have numbers are our main line to City Hall, because I know that the mayor's calls, oftentimes my calls and Greg's calls get filtered through administration. But I also, like I said, wanted to touch base with all of you on that, because I don't want to then have a new burden put on administration, on our assistant, where now all the blight stuff is going through her. So I think you're absolutely right, Commissioner Watson. A decision has to be made about what is the correct contact point for that, and then where does it?
Because
where
I
do
think
we filter to?
by the time somebody's referencing this document, there's going to be some level of frustration, possibly.
Right.
And if they've got to pick the right phone number and they call the police department, the police is like, yeah, thanks for calling, but we don't deal with blight, or we don't deal with that component of blight. That's not going to help the user-friendly, buy-in. Like, okay, I'm in the wrong, I got to fix this. But as soon as we turn them away and be like, hey, wrong department, boy, that can put people into a spiral.
Yeah, I agree. So Greg, I'll kick that can to you to figure out what the right what the right department is. Maybe your new community development director, right, will be the person.
Could be. We're working on that.
Kind of, I guess I'll go. So I was one of the commissioners in these subcommittees, and these are more questions for the commission as a whole, as we kind of get into more meat and potatoes of it on what we want to add in the back end of this. Couple questions I have for my colleagues is, and again, the public needs to understand that city commission is going to be committed to this. However, we are not going after the single parents, the seniors on fixed incomes. We're going after the folks that actually are pretty much turn a blind eye to the properties. And most of those individuals that are, that are renters that own multiple properties don't even live in the community. They may live in the surrounding community, but they don't live in the city. So I just want to make that clear that we are not going after the renter or the home or the property owner. We're going after the people that are just kind of turning the blind eye to the property. In these meetings, I got very educated on how much time our code enforcement guys schedule inspections and just a lot of back end office work. And myself being a businessman myself, it's like, I don't want my highest wage employee doing kind of entry level or clerical kind of stuff. I want them doing the meat and potatoes of my business. So maybe we talked amongst ourselves in our small committee is, is there a way we can get Glenn and Jake, maybe a part-time clerical person to schedule some of these rental inspections? Like, is that something we can look at? Again, that's why we have this pre-meeting, because we want to get feedback from our colleagues. And another thing is we're getting ready to dive into the budget. So does the city commission really want to take blight serious, and do we want to have a line item in the budget to take down some of these properties? I know Wyandotte, we spoke to the gentleman, Mark from Wyandotte, and he said how they cleaned up Wyandotte is that first of all, they were all on the same page, or city council, they had political capital first before they do anything. And then they go snowballing downhill, because once you have support of the political capital, which would be the 7 of us, then you can start to move some things. And so, but it takes money sometimes. When you want to take down a house that's been condemned, or other properties in the city that needs to be taken care of, do we want to commit some financial resources every year to take down some of these properties? That's something I think as a group, once we get to budget time, I think that's something we should look at. Another thing is we talked about, when you sell a house in the city, and we, Commissioner Strayer and myself were on the commission when we talked about this initially, and like I told, our colleagues in our committee, is that, when you sell a house in the city, maybe it should be inspected first. And if it doesn't pass inspection, you can't close in a sale. A lot of communities do that. I remember we were talking about that right when Lad and I first got on, and next thing you know, we got a chambers full of realtors, and so not happy about it clearly, but I think it's time to shift courses on making people happy and to clean up our city. So those are just a couple of things I have off the top of my head. Again, those aren't my opinions. That's something I want to talk with the rest of the group about, but I'm very excited about this. I think that blight is one of the 2 things that I've constantly heard about as my 5 years in the city commission. The other one was the condition of our parks. And to be honest with you, I don't hear about the parks anymore like I used to. So I think that department has done a really good job, but I still hear about blight. From the guys sitting around drinking coffee, they're always on me about it. So I'm excited that hopefully we're all going to be committed to this and hold each other accountable also. But it's time to get a little tough, I think. This is my opinion.
Al, can you recap the couple things there that you wanted our feedback on?
Yeah, because I was shocked with how much time the code enforcement office, how much time they take scheduling inspections and doing office or clerical work. And so we talked about, is it prudent for the city to get them help so they can be more boots on the ground and get somebody that we can hire maybe part-time to push papers in the back end. So we can have, so we don't have the guys that are actually out there writing tickets or enforcing our ordinance in the office, doing office work. That was the first thing that came to mind on that. And then the budget line item for blighted properties. Obviously we're always going to explore grant opportunities, but sometimes, and we have gotten some, but do we want to commit every year some money to take down some of these blighted properties?
Take down, is that a literal phrase? Take down, like demolish,
yes.
Raise
Yep.
a building?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. City of Wyandotte did it. They had great responses with that. And again, he said, Mark, the gentleman from Wyandotte said that, once they're, and again, my girlfriend, is from Lincoln Park. And when she was growing up in Lincoln Park, Wyandotte was the worst city in downriver, worst city. And then by the time she left, it came to Adrian, it was one of the best cities in downriver. And I think it's a credit to their aggressiveness on it. And we're not taking any more crap, and we're going to clean up the city. And
They had
I'm sorry?
didn't have a pretty large budget too for that, like 800,000, or was that one of the other cities we talked to? They all had a pretty large budget for that, but.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know the exact number on it.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know the exact number on it, but maybe it's something we can, we don't have to use their exact number, but I do know we have some resources and we could use some of those resources to kind of clean it up. But that number, the exact number, I don't know. But, and one more thing is that we talked about in our committee is that commercial properties, a lot of these commercial properties, whether it be the mall, whether it be Adrian Barbell, Family Dollar, a lot of those folks that own those commercial, or a lot of those companies or real estate companies that own those buildings don't live anywhere, don't even live in the state sometimes, and, in some cases. So they have to be designated a representative within a certain mile radius that the city can get to, say, hey, listen, we're trying to contact the property owner, say, from the mall. And sometimes those folks are hard to get a hold of, so having a mile radius where these real estate companies have to have a designated person that the city can go to and say, hey, listen, we're trying to get a hold of the property owner, and they're not answering us, so we're coming to you. And so we mean business kind of thing. So, but more so just the budget line item for, for blight. Is it something we need to explore, getting the code enforcement office, maybe a part-time clerical, or even a quarter time, just something that we don't have our main guys, our main cogs pushing papers and scheduling inspections. So I was baffled that we have to call renters and set that up. When I deal with the state with my gas, all the underground tanks and like that, it's my responsibility as the property owner to contact Eagle or whoever else I need to get to in order to get my proper licensing, updated every year and stuff like that. So I was surprised by how much time that we take to schedule those things. And sometimes people are hard to get a hold of too. So again, it's like, I think we could use those resources with our main cogs that are, Glenn and Jake. They should be on the ground, in my opinion. So
I think a lot of that makes sense. And I think monetary investment, money talks, and money gets results too in a situation like this. So what investment are we willing to make? I'm interested to know, how our dollars can be the greatest impact. Obviously, to borrow a line from Matt Schwartz in his debate for mayor, we own bulldozers that can take down blight. It's not as simple as that, but I have no clue what kind of investment would make a difference. Would $10,000 make a difference? Would 50? Would 100? Is it $1 million? I don't know, but man, I'm open to that investment.
Yeah.
A question back to you, and maybe it's to Tamaris as well. Do we have judge buy-in on this idea and support from them in the courthouse? Because I've heard that has been a hurdle in the past.
I'd say that it absolutely was a hurdle in the past. Right now, I feel very comfortable with how the judges have been doing what I ask in order to get the enforcement done. It is my goal, though, that once we have all this structured and really have it nailed down what we want to do, I would like to go sit down with the district court chief judge, discuss with her the possibility of her assigning all of our blight cases to just one court, so that then I can have a working relationship with the judge, and they can really understand what our goals are, what our expectations are, and be able to help us work towards those things so that we can get some consistent rulings on what comes in, and they can understand what our end game is and help us to enforce that, as opposed to right now, it's kind of just everything's on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes there's someone who comes in and they say, well, my husband passed away, so I can't go out and do this, and I can't do this and that. It ends up being that I go digging into it and find out that that's true, but their husband passed away 4 years ago. And so the story then all of a sudden is not as detrimental to them handling what's going on now. Whereas if we can get kind of on the same page with a particular judge, where we can have those conversations and the judge and I can both ask those questions and really determine what's going on with that resident and how we can best help them. Do we need to direct them to a community resource because they are indigent or they are disabled because of their age and things like that? And are they going to be cooperative in doing all that? Or are they just some landlord who does not live in the state, like Commissioner Helt said, and they avoid us all the time? Then the judge is going to know, hey, let's just bring the hammer down. But as far as what we're doing right now, they've been very cooperative. My only complaint is that they've got blight scheduled out over 3 different days of the week now. So I feel like if we can just get all this nailed down, maybe we can get the court cases down to 1 or 2 days a week, because it'll kind of work like clockwork and be more efficient for the court and for us as a city.
Tamaris, can you briefly describe, again, this is something we talked about also in our committee, when it comes to the magistrate, if we don't get any traction with the courts, because I know that before that was a trouble, is that, their work dockets are already so bogged down. So, is the magistrate an issue that, or something we can look into? Like, if we don't get compliance with the court, and because going the magistrate route, we have more control of that. And so I like to have control of what we're doing. So if city commission's pushing an agenda, like, let's have control of it as much as we can.
So going the magistrate route would mean that we would hire, or you would appoint someone to be a magistrate for the city. We would have our own location where we held those hearings, and then that person would make all of those decisions with regard to what happens with blight. It would mean that we would draft an ordinance specifically about that, to give that magistrate the authority to be able to do that, which is no problem. There's state law that backs us up to do that, so we can create that. But there would be some financial investment on the part of the city, because that would create an additional position within the city that we would pay the cost for. On the other hand, depending on how the enforcement goes, obviously, if we're getting results and we're collecting our fines and costs for those hearings, then that may be something that can balance out.
I appreciate what you've put together, Tamaris. It is something that I've wanted for the couple of years that I've been on the commission. I agree. One of you said it's about education, and that is true. People just don't understand blight and what it is and what to do about it. So what you have so far is a great start. I love it. Alan, in regards to your questions, those are some interesting questions about funding that we're going to have to really take a look at and see if we can put some dollars behind it. I think that we are all behind this politically as a movement. Finding the money to deal with it could be tough, but I'd certainly like to try. I think we need to try.
Let me jump in here and say that the meetings that we had with these 3 cities were extremely beneficial, but without money behind it, basically, we're not going to make hardly any progress at all. And it's something that needs to have funding every year, every single year. But this afternoon, as I thought about this meeting, I made a short prepared statement. That blight encompasses so many individual problems, it's hard to attack the problem from one angle. Our blight committee has had the opportunity to speak and learn face to face from people from Mobile, Alabama, St. Petersburg, Florida, and Wyandotte, Michigan. Each city had their own issues, but it wasn't until they began meeting these issues head on that they started to see some progress. Each one of these cities acknowledged when they started to meet the challenges, they didn't know what the answers were. It was all trial and error. When an idea worked, they moved forward. When they made a mistake, they took a different course. They all have made great progress. They all have a lot more to do, and they all acknowledge this is a long-term project that will take years. Some people in the community may feel that we are behind or slow to deal with blight, but I prefer to look at it as trying to get ahead of the problem before we get into some of the dire situations where we've learned about from much bigger cities. I'm sure that as we move forward in the months and years, there are going to be alterations as to how we fight blight in Adrian. But in the meantime, I feel confident that the people from St. Petersburg, Mobile, and Wyandotte have provided us with a good base to work from. We're all aware of some of the iconic eyesores that we've had around Adrian over the years, or the neighbor on your block who doesn't seem to care. But I've appreciated conversations I've had with Glenn where he points out real improvements in properties that most of us wouldn't be aware of because they aren't in our neighborhood. I'm also happy with the progress that Jake is making with the rental inspections. And I really appreciate the work that Tamaris has done on this document and the work that she's done with the judges getting us to this point. So I feel like we're going in the right direction, and reiterating again that this really is all about, it's all about education and it's all about money.
You know, I think Commissioner Strayer's comments there pretty much sum up what all of us are thinking and feeling. I've waited a long time, and many of you or most of you have waited longer than I have to be in the place that we are now. I think the committee that has worked on this for well over a year is to be commended for their hard work and pulling this together. The people from outside the City Hall, the community that have worked, they've been very important contributors to the process, bringing in the three municipalities who participated and were able or willing to teach us what they had been able to do successfully. Tamaris, I think you've done a wonderful job putting this together and pulling it. Yes, it's going to take money. We're going to have to figure it out. We're going to have to find the money because I feel like we've got some traction now, or at least we're gaining some traction, and we've got an opportunity. It's going to require a lot of education. It's going to require money, and it's going to, we're going to have to be behind this 100% and not just, for this next 12 months. This is going to be an ongoing issue, but I appreciate it. And I guess the question that I have for Tamaris is, when will we have a draft of the ordinance to look at?
Greg and I were just waiting to hear what we got from you tonight. So I think that we can have a draft of the ordinance at the next meeting, at the next pre-meeting, not the regular meeting, but the pre-meeting for you to look at in a couple of weeks. And then we can go from there.
Thank you. That'd be wonderful.
When creating that draft, I did have one question I'd like further clarification on in the writing. In section, oh gosh, I've got so many notes here. 1B6, it says to schedule a pre-trial meeting when necessary.
Oh Lord, what page is that, Commissioner?
It's on page, it's the very bottom of page 2.
Okay.
Set for hearing, the blight ticket is scheduled for a pre-trial and subsequent hearing when necessary.
Okay.
I'm confused by what's when necessary means. So
okay.
It's not that you have to answer it today, but if you could take a look at that and make sure that what it says there is really what you want it to say.
Yep. So I will answer, and then I'll say that's just, I'm sure, one of the things that Commissioner Watson was talking about that we need to be a little more clear, because that's legal language. So a pre-trial is your very first meeting or first hearing that you would have. And when we go to the pre-trial, we hope that we can figure everything out pre-trial before we get to a trial. But if a resident was to object to the ticket and want to have a full hearing, then that would be the subsequent hearing as necessary. And the judge may hold that day, or they may set it for a date further out because that person may want to have time to get their evidence together and bring it, or something of that nature. They may even want to have an attorney represent them, just depending on the situation. So the pre-trial is just the very first time that I go to court with them, but it doesn't always mean that it's all done and taken care of right then.
I see what you're trying to get at. So maybe those should be two different sentences. The blight ticket is scheduled for a pre-trial period. A subsequent hearing is scheduled if necessary, period.
Okay.
Something. Okay. Makes complete sense now. Thank you.
Yep.
In an explanation, just like you said, Tamaris, I don't know what a pre-trial is.
Mm-hmm.
You just described it where it's an effort to not go to trial. I would have thought,
Yes.
hey, trial's inevitable, and here's our first meeting to set the ground rules. So
okay,
you described it in a way that I have no clue what a pre-trial is.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But the real meat and potatoes is Commissioner Strayer is absolutely right. Unless we're going to commit to money financially, it's like we're just spinning our wheels here. And I think once you put money behind something, it gets even more serious than lip service. So myself being very, frugal, I think that, if the city's spending money on something, I think that we're going to be held a lot more accountable to seeing some results, I think. So, but again, it's like, we're not going after the renters, we're going after the property owners. And so if you own a bunch of rental properties in the city, that you have a business, in my opinion. So, and there's a cost of doing business. There's cost of maintaining your properties. There's cost of giving your renters a habitable living environment. Because believe it or not, I've been in some of the houses, and they're awful. And those owners should be ashamed of themselves for having people live there. So again, it's again, we want compliance. We don't want Tamaris in court. We don't want people wasting a bunch of time, but we also want compliance. So I think it's a very small group of folks that get away with it because they've gotten away with it long enough. So I think the time is now to act and to act aggressively, somewhat.
And I think the one thing that we really got out of that, meeting, I think at first, the first meeting we had with the first city, we were a little shocked. It was like that sticker shock when they were saying, that you have to invest, and they showed us that. And then the next city we meet with says the exact same thing, and a lot. We were hearing it over and over again, and I think it took a while to absorb that and to really take that on. But I do believe that Commissioner Hout and Commissioner Strayer and I, as time went on, we're like, okay, there's a common theme here, and we are going to really have to invest some sort of money if we're going to really see results. That's what these cities had to do to turn it around, and the turnaround was amazing in these communities. It took a lot of effort, it took a lot of work, but it did take that financial commitment as well, and just that commitment from the city to be dedicated to to changing the facade of their community, essentially.
It's infectious, when you have some of our neighborhoods in the city that need some improvement from a blight standpoint. If you see a couple houses get revitalized, right, that becomes infectious like with anything else. Success is infectious, being a detriment is infectious, and so is pride in your neighborhood too. So I think once we get rolling here, the dominoes will start to fall, and I am really excited about it. I think that, and I knew my fellow colleagues would be excited about it also, and we can just push this agenda, and once we're all long gone, we can look back and say, you know what, we did this, the 7 of us, so, and the city staff.
I'm glad you mentioned, Commissioner Halt, how infectious it could be. I know you probably remember from our last meeting, we talked about things like, approaching Best of Lenawee and asking them to have a landlord category, that you could have the opportunity for your tenants and other people in the community to vote for you because you have the best upkeep on your rental properties, and just acknowledging these landlords as a business owner that wants to be a good corporate citizen and do well within the community, but starting to find different ways to acknowledge people who are helping us to tackle blight and get some attention out there for that. And also, one of the other things that I just want to point out is, though I have every intention of being aggressive about this, it's always my first option to try to build a positive relationship with whoever I'm working with, so that we can work hand in hand. So I don't intend to just come out the gate, attacking the landlords that are out here. For instance, Glenn let us know in our meeting that we have internally every couple weeks that there's a particular business that owns several properties that are due for rental inspections, and that they had sent out a letter but didn't get any response yet. And I said, I know who represents them. Let me reach out to their attorney and see if they can get them to give us a call and get those scheduled, so that we don't have to take any legal action against them on it. Our first avenue is always going to be to extend that olive branch and say, is there a way that we can get them on board with us, because I would rather have them on board than have to fight them in court every step of the way. So I don't want the community to think that we're going to be out here, you know, just hammering these people in the head. But the first step's going to be, we would like to make you a partner in what we're trying to do here in the city. And then from there, if you don't want to be a partner, well, then we may have to drag you kicking and screaming, and that's what we're going to do too. So
I think, I'm with you, Tamaris, to a point, but it's also a slippery slope. And you know, where's that line of diplomacy versus, you know, kind of limping somebody along? Because when this is written, it's going to be written well, that it's not a surprise. And the rental inspections aren't a surprise. And so I don't, I'm going to need to warm up to that idea by you. Now, Glenn should be carrying around a can of honey, trying to attract people. But by the time it gets to you, there's an enforcement matter that it needs to be addressed.
yeah, I hear you. And this was before we hit enforcement matter. It was something he brought up in a meeting. Hey, heads up, if this doesn't get addressed in the next week, I'm going to be bringing it to you for enforcement. So that was like a pre-warning.
Yeah. Okay.
Type of thing.
I think what Commissioner Watson's getting at is that let's start getting after some things. And I agree with them. You know, if it gets on your desk in your office, it's time to act. I mean, it just is.
Gotcha.
Okay, anything else on that item? None. Thank you, Tamaris. That was awesome. The next thing we have on the pre-meeting agenda tonight is a discussion of marijuana facilities in the B1 and B2 district and the conditions under which they're allowed. You may recall that we allow 10 in those particular districts. We are unlimited overall in the city, in that we allow dispensaries to be attached to grow facilities in the overlays, in the industrial overlays, without limitation. But in the B1 and B2 districts, dispensaries are limited to the number of 10, and then subject to certain distance criteria related to other sorts of uses, which they may not be closer to than, in some cases, 1,000 feet, in other cases 250 feet, in other cases they cannot be adjacent to them. So with that, I'll open it up for commissioner discussion. This was put on at commission request.
Sure. So I'll jump at this first. Two components to it. Simplest one, libraries. I think we need to discuss and have a setback from the libraries, similar to schools, similar to churches, daycare centers, so on and so forth. So, and let me preface all my comments with, there's a grandfather clause. I mean, the industry is in town. There's places that are operating closer to a library than I think they should. This is a, hey, if these go away, then all of a sudden these setbacks come in to enforcement. So I would like consideration for libraries in our ordinance, and whatever that distance is. I don't know which pile it falls into, if it's the 250, if it's 1,000, if it's the, not adjacent that, but there's a spot for it. And the second one is a little bit, it is more complex. So we got 10 in the B1, B2. I'd like to see that back down to 5. That's where I was originally when when the ordinance came through. We went to 10, and we've learned a lot in the time since we initially put this online. How do we get down to 5? Again, there's the grandfather clause, but also I want to recognize and encourage successful businesses. And so, I want these businesses to be able to perpetuate, to sell their businesses to the next proprietor, stay in the marijuana business. But in the same right, if there's a point in time where a business or a location goes dormant for a certain amount of time, where all of a sudden that B1, B2 opportunity is gone, and where it naturally peels itself back, because there's a lot of feedback, not a lot. There's enough feedback where I brought it to this commission level of we have too many. And whether it's perception or reality, the reality, the market's going to play it out. Perception, our neighbors tell us what the perception is. In my neighbors and other people in the community, and I use the term neighbors generally, but my neighbors and my constituents tell me that there's too many. Visitors to town tell me it's too many. So this was the most logical thing in my mind is that as if businesses leave or if businesses go out of business, and I really don't, I hope they don't, but if they do, let's bring it back down. Let's come back down to a number closer to a 5. And this could take 20 years. It could take 5 years. It could take 6 months. I don't know, but I think there needs to be some consideration in our ordinance to step that down when space is afforded to us.
I guess I'll go. Go ahead, Mary. You can go.
So I'm intrigued, not opposed, not for, not against. I guess I would want to be sure I understand what you mean by grandfathered in. So let's say Highwire is in business for 5 years and they're doing fine, but he decides, nah, we want to move to Hawaii. They would be okay to sell it to another marijuana company to sell from that same business. It's just that no one could move next door if the Highwire license becomes available, correct?
Yeah. So in my knowledge on the license isn't exactly refined, but I think it travels with the business or the individual, not the location. And my thought is that if for some reason a license goes dormant, or if they go out of business and that license isn't put in place in a timely fashion as expected, somebody doesn't get appointed and things like, there's a point where all of a sudden we're at 9.
Right.
With that being said, my expectation is a business like a Highwire, like any of them in town, is going to be successful enough where maybe it needs to be perpetuated to the next generation of ownership. I'm not getting involved in that. That's commerce at its best. But if for some reason it goes dormant or sleepy for an amount of time, then all of a sudden we're down to 9, and we don't hold that 10th spot open.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, if I could explain a little bit how it would work. These are these regulations related to the number of facilities that are allowed or are contained in the zoning ordinance. And so if we were to amend that section of the zoning or those sections of the zoning ordinance to create a maximum of 5, now every existing facility in B1 and B2 would now become potentially a non-conforming use. And so what the ordinance says generally about non-conforming uses are that they, if they go vacant for 6 months or more, they lose that status. They cannot be reestablished. They can't be expanded in most circumstances. They can't be moved to another location. So with respect
But
to
they
all
could be sold. It could be the
sold
same.
in that same location.
Yeah,
Yes.
at the same location, they could be sold to another entity. Okay, that's what I wanted to be sure.
So all of them would be stuck just how they are at this point. They would not be able to change up to the point where, there was attrition down to the number 5, and then, then they would become conforming again at that point.
Commissioner Watson, do you see this? I heard you say you would be fine with, or your idea would be, okay, it can go to the next generation. What about our provision for transfers? Like, would our transfer provision and the state's transfer provision still apply? So kind of like what Commissioner Roberts was saying, if they want to sell the business, what they do right now is they apply at the state level for the license to be transferred over. And then once they have the thumbs up from the state level, they provide that documentation to Robin and I for review. And then we can let them put in a request for you guys to approve a transfer, and we take it through our process. But we require that the state agree with it first, so that we don't have to do as much background work on that type of stuff. And it allows them to transfer their permit to another qualified company, LLC, that's already licensed by the state. Would that still be allowable? And I guess I asked that because I'm trying to contemplate how it would affect business values for individuals who have the business there.
Yeah.
And might need to sell later.
Again, I mean, this is a new industry, and I hope that our proprietors in town are very successful. And part of being in business is cashing out. I get that. I don't want to negatively impact that in any way, shape, or form. But in the same right, I want to say, hey, we're at the top right now. And if, Greg just used the term 6 months, if 6 months goes by where this license or this, it would be the license goes sleepy, then all of a sudden that license is gone.
And then what's your idea with libraries? Is it public libraries, all libraries, like educational?
I mean, to put it specifically, I don't like the image of the old Tangles building across from Wendy's on West Maumee being right next to the county library. That looks bad to me. And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. I think it's an innocent oversight that wasn't included in what we're looking at. I mean, the city, the district library, I think it's got some protection because of its location.
Right.
In the, the two locations over there on the West Corridor, they're pretty close to that library, and I personally don't like it. And so that's why I think that there should be some consideration to that, because it fits in the idea of daycare, schools, churches, kind of those areas where it's a little bit different than just a commercial plaza.
Thank you for clarifying that for me.
So I want to correct something I just said, because we've been back and forth on where the number was, but the number is no longer in the zoning ordinance. I take that back. The number is only in the licensing ordinance, I believe, at this point. And Tamaris can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not finding it in the zoning ordinance. And so there would be two. They would be non-conforming if we change the location criteria, as with the distance from the library. So those that were too close to the library would be limited in the way I was describing, for example. However, as to the number, that would be a function of the licensing ordinance, and those would go away only as whatever the criteria you put into that ordinance were. It wouldn't be based on the zoning ordinance criteria that I described. It would be based on what, if it was 6 months of dormancy, then so be it. But you would be able to set those criteria, I think, and Tamaris can correct me if I'm wrong, but set those criteria for when one of those licenses would no longer be subject to renewal because of something that happened during the licensing cycle of that particular provisioning center or retailer.
I guess, when we started this process, I was a free market guy. I'm like, let the market play out. Let's the strong will rise, the cream will rise at the top, and that's the way I view business. With that being said, I think once I got on board with the idea of 10, I said, okay, I didn't view 10 was a lot. Now actually knowing, seeing these businesses open up and driving down South Main where one of my buildings is. But the only thing I have a problem with is that I know marijuana's in the city. I think our sign ordinances were so strong, and us only having really one issue with it with somebody not being in compliance when it comes to, and I think the city handled that very fast and swiftly, with that proprietor. I think the opting into the original law, I think it's showing dividends for us as a city right now. I mean, we've sold with the last big piece of property, if that closes and gets done, I mean, we've sold over $2 million in property. There has been jobs created. The excise tax, we're actually going to get some money. According to Attorney Hennigan, we're going to get $168,000, roughly, right? So that looks like a good budget line item to me, just personally saying. So, do I think 10's too many? I don't know yet. I can't really give a position on that, but what I do know is that my idea of what would happen if say 7 to 8 of them got open, I think they're showing dividends, because I think these are good proprietors. They've redone their buildings. Their parking lots are always in good shape. But do I think 10's too many? I don't know if I can get there yet to scale back, but what I do know is that it's starting to show dividends from a financial standpoint, not only a job standpoint, and that was the original position I took when we opted into it. So, but I'm open to Commissioner Watson to listening to something like, and I love your idea of grandfathering the ones that are in, because again, they're the ones, in business, you put up risk, you put up your own money. So, we hope they all succeed, but I don't know if I think 10's too many yet. I haven't quite gotten there.
Can I jump in on this? I guess at this point, I wouldn't say I'm for or against. I totally understand where Commissioner Watson's coming from. I think that he's maybe talking to some different people than what I've been talking to. I think that demand for the product will ultimately dictate how all of this plays out. I think things have gone very well in the time that these businesses have been in town. And as time goes on, I think there are going to be fewer and fewer people that have the perception that it's not good for Adrian. I want to say all the storefronts look really good. I haven't heard any negative comments. In fact, I talked with a neighbor to one of the South Main businesses a couple of days ago, and that business commented on what good neighbors they've been. And so I guess I'm thrilled at what I'm hearing. And I think there's always going to be people that think that marijuana has a bad perception for Adrian. But I think as time goes by and these businesses continue to thrive and we don't have issues, I think that perception will just wane in the future. That's just my opinion. I guess time will tell.
Yeah, I think a component in Administrator Elliott clued me in on this today is that on our master plan survey that's out, there is a question on there related to the number of marijuana facilities, and so I think we'll get hopefully some decent feedback on that maybe it'll shut me down and I'll just be like, hey, it's a non-issue for my community. Why do I care? Or it might solidify something and be like, hey, this is something that we should really think about. But my position is a very passive approach, because I want to make sure that this industry is functioning. Commissioner Help just dropped a bunch of good stats, dollars talked, all of that. And with that, I want these proprietors to be able to perpetuate. That's, again, part of the dream. But in the same right, I do still passively want to look out for the image of our city and peeling that back, because again, I'm firm that 10 is too many.
I understand all the comments here. I agree with Commissioner Strayer. Commissioner Watson, I have thought from the very beginning that 10 was too many. I don't know what the right number was, 8, 6, 5. I'd be comfortable with 5. I think it's more than a perception, though, that we have too many dispensaries in the city. But I don't know it has anything to do with the licensing numbers in the B1, B2. I think it has to do with the number of unlimited licenses that we have in the overlays. And, to say something, we've got this area over here that we could have 500 of them out there. Well, that's obviously ludicrous, but, I agree that with Commissioner Halt that, the strongest are the ones that are going to survive. And that's capitalism. But again, I don't know that we've got too many in the B1, B2 districts. I think we got too many in total, primarily because of the overlay.
How many provisioning centers are in the overlay?
Tamaris?
So there's not any open in the overlay yet, but if I am not mistaken, there are, I think, maximum 3 that are planned, that are part of a site plan as an additional phase later on. And that's 3 between both the east and the west overlays. And then also I wanted to point out that there's a couple in the B1, B2 that are not open yet, but do have permits. One of those being the one that you mentioned, the old Tingles building. Another being the building next to Taco Bell, which is on South Main. The old Act One studio is very close to being able to open. From what I understand, they're just waiting on their C of O inspection, and then they will be getting their full state license. And that one's been in the game since the very beginning. It just took them a very long time to get to the point of state licensing. So that's, I guess, a prospective 5 more that are not technically open yet, that could be open at some point throughout the entire city. There are additional requirements if you want to open in the overlay. It has to be on the same parcel as a grow, has to be owned by the same company, that the parcel has to be owned by the same person, and then both the grow and the provisioning center have to be owned by the same person or entity. So there's some stricter requirements within the overlay. And then the other thing I wanted to point out on what Commissioner Halt said with regard to the excise tax, just as you guys are taking all this into consideration, I just want to remind you that the excise tax only applies to provisioning centers who are licensed for adult use. So though we have all these other facilities throughout the city, like grows and processors and all those things, their sales are there's not this excise tax that we are collecting off of for those things. We are only collecting off of adult use licenses for provisioning centers in the city. So just keeping that in mind, that it could affect the revenue from excise taxes, but at the same time, it may balance all out. If you had 6 of them that are surviving and thriving really well, and then your taxes from them go up, it could all balance itself out. But I just wanted to remind you guys of that's the only place that the excise tax stems from, is our provisioning centers that have an adult use license. If they're medical licensed only, then we wouldn't collect any excise tax off of them. We don't have any of those right now, but if we did have one, it wouldn't apply.
Thank you, Tamaris. And once again, Commissioner Watson, Tamaris has shown that I don't know what I'm talking about.
The other thing to consider about the unlimited number and theoretically unlimited number in the overlay is that was our basis for not having a competitive process for recreation when we opted into recreational marijuana. And so if we were to in some way limit that, we would then have to develop a competitive process for recreational licenses.
Thank you for that reminder. Absolutely. We wanted to avoid that. So I appreciate you reminding me.
So Greg, can I get a clarification? So if we were to look at the setback from the libraries, and you're saying that would be they would be non-conforming in the zoning ordinance, if that did go through. So my question is, then they're not allowed to sell, like if they decide they want to sell that, or because it's going to be non-conforming, correct? Because that's different. How does that play out?
They could sell. So they would have all those limitations I was describing at the beginning before I remembered the
Okay.
PEN number is not in the zoning ordinance anymore. So for those facilities that would be too close for to a library, for example, they would not be able to expand. They would not be able to relocate. They would be able to sell and continue in operation as long as they did not cease operation for 6 months or more.
Okay.
Right, where they ceased operation for 6 months or more, they would have to close.
And I've, from the beginning of, this was already ongoing when I became mayor, but I always was concerned there were too many. And I just thought there were too many for the size of our town. And, but I don't know what I think now. I mean, like everybody seems to be, doing, I don't know where I really stand in this issue right now at all, to be quite honest with you. I just really always thought there were too many and I don't know how they could all survive. That's where I was really thinking as it was beginning. And I don't know. I think we just need to have more discussion about that. And I'm not really sure where I stand on that right now.
Hey, I'm on a Zoom thing.
We get a report from each provisioning center annually that it's required of them by the state. They send it into the state and then they send a copy to the municipality. So we have an idea for some of them anyways that have already sent those in from their 2020 year. We have an idea of what their financial report looks like. I'm just curious to know if it would help you guys with this type of discussion, if you had any idea like how much of their business is local and whether or not they're really bringing in business from outside the city and or state, because I know that they have to keep track of where all their customers are coming from. That may be information that they have. I hear a lot through the grapevine, they get business coming in from other states and things like that, but I don't know if that would be helpful to you or not. We could shoot out an email to our group of those that are already licensed, and I'm sure that they would send back any information that they could or that they have on hand.
Any more discussion on that item? Okay, hearing none for right now. Maybe have time for one more here. Before we want to leave time for public comment, but Matt, can you quickly show us what you're thinking as it relates to the Adrian welcome sign, which the M52 sign is in need of repair, as I think you all know. Matt's been looking into some options for that. We may have a screen share here as well that we can do. Matt, you want to go over that quickly?
Sure. So Michelle's going to pull up what we've been working on internally. That is the sign. We have a couple different options. The first and cheapest option is to put an aluminum sign up and put a sticker on it. That's not ideal, but it is a cheap option. We thought we could maybe spruce it up a little bit by using some raised letters, raise the Adrian text and put some lights behind it. And I think any route we go besides a plain sticker is probably going to have to be put out for bid. We just kind of want to get some feedback from you guys to see if this is the route you guys want to take.
Can you give us a ballpark? What's the sticker? What would some of the spruced up options run us?
So a sticker would probably cost roughly $3,500. And to spruce it up, we're probably talking over 10,000, which is why we'd have to go out for bid. Again, it'd be elevated letters and lights behind the letters, and we'd keep the lights out in front as well, but we'd have to run some additional electrical if you guys want lights behind the letters.
We have uplights there right now, though, Matt?
Correct.
I mean, I just want it fixed. I mean, it looks terrible. I mean, I drive every morning when I go out to my north store, I come back in and people are commenting on Facebook about it too. And then, and so I want it replaced or fixed or whatever direction we need to go, but we need to fix it. I mean, because it's the entrance to our city and it's very important. Now, you know, I'm really weird about things like that in my own businesses, that lights and signs and light bulbs that are out. It's like, you know, it just makes the whole, I mean, it's important. So, I mean, is it Matt, is this the new sign or is this the sticker?
This is what we are proposing. This is a rough draft of what we'd be proposing to put up
Okay.
in place of the.
So this is the design. It could be done in different ways. It could be just a sticker. It could have raised letters, be more elaborate. And then the one on the west side would be similar, only round.
I love the design. I think it's clean and clear. When you're driving by, you see pertinent information. If you messy it up with a lot of other words and things, no one's going to see it anyways. I have no problem with just spending the $3,500 and getting the sticker and plastering it right over the top of what we currently have, if the lights still work out there. I know some of them had been working, but I don't know if all of them had. But I don't feel the need to spend $10,000 when I think we can get away with a $3,500 fix pretty, and it's still going to look nice.
Does that investment cover both signs, Matt?
What's that, Brad?
Does that investment cover both signs?
No,
I'd like some consistency between signs.
That would just be one sign.
So we're looking at $7,000 then between both?
Probably. If it's just the sticker option, then probably so, yes.
Okay, and then on that sticker option, so my question is, the one that is on 52 is falling. So like, are we looking at, like, that looks like that whole thing's falling. It's not just an issue.
That's gonna require some more reinforcement than just putting a new sign up. We gotta reinforce the steel that's currently holding that sign.
Wait, we're not talking about the sign on 50 out by Planeway?
Yeah, that's the one that's falling. It's like
that's what I'm talking about. That's the one that looks terrible because it's broke.
Mhm,
right.
mhm.
Yep, and we'd have to reinforce the brackets that hold up that sign currently, and then we could put a new sign up.
So is that something we have to look outside for somebody else to do, or you're saying that's something we can do internally? I guess that's what I'm asking.
I think we might be able to do it internally. We're still looking at that though.
What are we doing with the circles of businesses or clubs and organizations around it? Like,
So
some of them need to be updated as well or taken down. Something needs to happen there, I think, as well.
right, we're gonna take all those down and reach out to everyone. And if they would like to refinish those, they can. If they choose not to, we probably won't put them back up, because quite honestly, if we're gonna put a new sign up, I think they should have a new sign as well.
And how long does a sticker sign last, Matt?
It's gonna be like the same vinyl, probably a little bit better vinyl than we use on our street signs. So I'm gonna guess it's gonna be 10, 15 years.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, so I'm confused now. So the blue sign is just a sticker that will go on top of this sign, right? Or no?
It would be an aluminum back. It'd be a whole new aluminum sign. So the sign you're looking at right now is completely, it's fiberglass. It's hollow fiberglass. It would be a complete new sign. We'd take that one, rip it down, put a fiberglass sign up, and put a sticker on top of that one.
Aluminum.
Yeah, I was just personally talking about it being broke. And it's
Yeah.
that's what I have a problem with, because again, that's just a terrible way to look at it when you drive in our city. How long has it been broke for? I mean,
It's been broke for probably a month and a half. That is the only fix we can do, because the fiberglass has completely broken apart, and we can't fix it the way it is.
okay. How much would that cost to fix? I mean, because I don't understand why it hasn't been fixed. It's been a month and a half. Just, I mean, if it's under $10,000, just fix it. I mean, that's.
I guess we'd have to find someone who does fiberglass repairs. I'm not sure what it would cost to fix that.
I think the point is you can't fix the fiberglass, right? You can't fix fiberglass.
Right.
Right. We're going to take the fiberglass is splintering apart and breaking, and it can't, and the brackets will no longer connect to it. So we're going to replace it with a metal sign, and the sticker would be the finish on the metal sign. aluminum side.
Okay.
And so then that's how we can repair that, because it'll be on that metal sign, so then we can actually fix the brackets, is what you're saying?
I'm
Correct.
thinking we can fix the brackets, yes.
Okay.
How long will this take to make it happen?
Well, we've not had great luck getting a hold of sign companies lately, so I can't give you an answer. I mean, it's taken us 3 weeks to get quotes back, and we're still waiting on quotes still. I honestly can't give you an answer. I wish I could, but that's not my business.
What I think I'm hearing is that we'd like to fix it as quickly as we can. And
Yes.
35, the aluminum back with the decal is fine. We just want to get it done as quickly as possible.
And
Yes.
I just know I'm also very passionate that both signs match. Like I want them to coordinate. I don't want one fixed and not both.
Right.
I agree.
Theme is
Thank you, guys.
important, right, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, I think we understand. Got like 2 minutes left for public comment there, if you'd like to open it up.
Yes. Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up for public comment, and please state your name and address.
Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust. I guess in regards to the blight ordinance, I think I made several calls back when Jim Berryman was the mayor. In fact, 3 of my neighbors went to a city commission meeting. Nothing was ever done. So I was hoping as part of your campaign, you would try to reach out to people who are just frustrated from the lack of action on the part of the city. If you would reach out to them and let them know that you guys are taking action. In regards to the sign, I guess I would like to see the sign eliminate Adrian College, Siena Heights University, and Jackson Community College unless they're paying for it. Those entities do not pay taxes. If you guys are going to put those non-paying tax entities on the sign, I would ask that you add Adrian Public Schools, the City of Adrian Public Schools, to that sign. The City of Adrian Public Schools bring in hundreds of people every year, and I think they should have the same name recognition as the other entities. The last item is boats, fiberglass boats. They do get damaged, and yes, you can repair fiberglass. Thank you.
Hearing no other public comment, may I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Support?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Yes, we are supposed to start our meeting currently right now, but is everybody okay if we take like a 2-minute bathroom break really fast?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we will begin our regular meeting shortly. It looks like all our commissioners are here, but once we get our city administrator back on, I will have him begin the speech and we'll begin the meeting. There he is. All right.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm City Administrator Greg Elliott. It's 7 o'clock, and I'd like to address a few things before Mayor Heath officially calls us to order. For much of the meeting, we asked the participants other than the commissioners and staff members mute themselves to allow the commission to have their discussions and conduct their business. That will also help minimize any background noise that may be disruptive. Opportunities for public comment will be offered at different points throughout the meeting. At those times, participants can unmute themselves and have an opportunity to address the commission. The 3-minute rule will be in effect for public comment. When it is time for public comment, please identify your name and address for the record prior to making your statement. Once we formally begin the meeting, the format and structure will be the exact same as it is for an in-person meeting. We'll work through the agenda items as usual. All commission rules and procedures remain in effect. We've talked in the past about Zoom bombing. This is where a virtual meeting is interrupted by people who fill the screen with objectionable content. If this occurs during the meeting tonight, we will disconnect the meeting and restart after a few minutes. Attendees can reconnect via the same link. We'll also turn over the video of the meeting to law enforcement for investigation. Our agenda and agenda packet is available on the city's website at www.adriancity.com. Thank you all for participating tonight. Mayor Heath, I will turn it over to you.
I call to order the Adrian City Commission regular meeting for February 15th, 2021. If everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Halt,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Gauss,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
all commission members present.
May I get a motion to approve the minutes of the February 1st, 2021 regular meeting?
Move to approve.
Support.
Second.
Mary, did you second that?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes.
Minutes approved by unanimous vote.
May I get a motion to pay the vouchers as presented?
Movie paid the vouchers as presented. Help.
Support, Gauss.
I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Gauss. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt.
Yes.
Vouchers approved by unanimous vote.
At this time, we have a proclamation. As many of you are aware, it is Black History Month. And so we are doing a proclamation today for the NAACP in honor of Black History Month. Whereas the NAACP has led the struggle for freedom and equality for all Americans for over 90 years. And whereas, as a result of the efforts of the NAACP, the barriers which have long divided people along racial and religious lines have been torn down. And whereas, as a result of efforts of the NAACP, the city of Adrian has become a better place for all of its citizens to work, study, learn, and live. Now therefore, I, Angela Sword Heath, Mayor of the City of Adrian, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2021 as Black History Month and call upon all people of goodwill and lovers of justice to join me in reaffirming our support of the Lenawee County chapter of the nation's oldest and largest civil rights organization, the NAACP. I will be delivering that personally myself to Jeanette Hennigan from the NAACP as well in the near future. Moving on, we have communications. C1 from finance, you have a December revenue and expenditure report. Commissioners, are there any comments on that? All right, moving on to our regular agenda. Resolution R21-017 is from Utilities. It is a resolution to award a bid for the purchase of a pickup truck for the wastewater treatment plant. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Watson.
Support, help.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Halt. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-018 is from Utilities. It is a resolution to waive the bid process and approve the purchase of a CCTV vehicle for the Operations and Maintenance Department. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move
Move
to adopt.
it.
Roberts.
Support. Watson.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments?
Just for some clarification, either Greg or Will, can you, I mean, I know why it's presented as waiving the bid, but for the public to know why we are waiving the bid process with language essentially, so.
This is pre-bid pricing. It's a national organization called Sourcewell that has already competitively sought out prices. And so that's the reason. Will can add to that if I've missed anything.
Thanks, Greg.
I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Watson. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Strayer,
Can you repeat that, Robin? It was hard to understand. Sorry.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-019 is from Fire. It is a resolution to waive the bid process and purchase LifePak 15 heart monitors from the sole source provider, Physio Control Incorporated. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Strayer.
Support.
Are you going to give it to Roberts on Watson, Robin?
I only heard Robert, so.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay, are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Strayer with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-020 is from the City Commission. It is a resolution to reappoint Ashley Gonzalez to the Board of Review. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move we adopt the resolution. Halt.
Support Strayer.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-021 is from the City Clerk. It is a resolution to approve the application for Purple Valley Farms LLC for a medical marijuana permit for one medical class B grow for 1105 East Beecher Street, Adrian, Michigan. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt. Roberts.
Support Watson.
There you go, Brad.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Watson. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-022 is from the City Clerk. It is a resolution to approve the application for dual purpose permits for two medical class C grows, one adult use class A grow and processor for Objective Growth of Michigan, LLC, for 1610 West Beecher Street, Adrian, Michigan. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Watson.
Support Strayer.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-023 is from administration. It is a resolution to approve the 2021 commercial marijuana facilities permit application package. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Gauss.
Support Strayer.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Gauss with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
There are miscellaneous reports in your packet. Commissioners, are there any comments on any of those reports?
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
the one with the rental inspections, oh, I apologize. No, I've lost it.
The rental inspection reports, number 5?
Yes, yeah. I just find, I have no questions or anything. I'm just finding it fascinating to go through there and how much time and effort they must have to go into every single place and make notes on everything. It's quite extensive. So, but I'm glad that we are finally able to get the time to do it.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that and say that I was fascinated by the report also, and I reached out to Glenn today just to learn a little bit more about it. And yeah, I'm thrilled that we're getting that information now.
Yes.
Any other comments on any of the reports in your packet? Thank you. Moving on to public comment. Just to reiterate, there is a 3-minute time limit. And for the record, please state your name and address.
Hello, I'm Joaquin Ramos, and I would like to comment on a few things. As far as blight, I hope you all do indeed put a significant amount of money into this. Otherwise, nothing's going to get done, as has been shown with previous property decisions in the city. And I certainly hope that you're going to go after some city and county blight as well. Then public comments, of course, my comment might not reach this threshold, but I've noticed very regularly people are getting cut off in their last 1 or 2 sentences. And I've also noticed that the commissioner comments usually, well, when they decide to speak a bit, do tend to take a few minutes. In fact, I'm pretty sure a few of them went over last time. And I think that it'll be more fair to the citizens, especially the ones being cut off at their last 1 or 2 sentences, for public comments to be a little bit longer. I'm not asking for an hour. I'm asking for like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, because it seems like 3 minutes is just regularly a little bit too short. And I'd also like to go to something that I've mentioned to all of you, actually, maybe not 1 or 2 of you, but most of you by now. There's the agenda and there's the packet. And I understand part of the idea is you don't want 100 pages of the packet on the quick agenda look. But it seems to me that you could include the pre-meeting agenda. Yes, now it's marked on Zoom that it exists. But I think it'd be nice for a lot of people, even if they don't want to see the full packet of dozens of pages, to at least see 3 pages of the pre-meeting and the normal meeting agendas. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Not hearing any more public comment, I'm going to move on. Are there any commissioner comments? Hearing none, may I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved, help.
Second, Casper.
I have a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.